If you've been feeling like your get up and go has gone up and went somewhere, you're not alone. There's a lot of heavy, dense, congested energy on the planet right now. And as empaths, we might really be feeling that. And you might have experienced some depression or some tiredness, or you might even have experienced some chronic fatigue. And if that's so, today's conversation with Katie Dean is going to be so helpful. She is somebody who has overcome chronic fatigue and is now teaching beautiful medicine about how to lead you through the maze of life so that you can thrive. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. To join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show. Soul Nectar Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show that talks about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our connection to that which is greater than us, to the big mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and what we're doing here on this tiny little blue dot in the middle of an ocean of stars. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I like having these conversations week after week because they also help me. And you know, when we're separate and alone and we feel separate and alone, we can feel really overwhelmed by what's going on in the world, especially if we're empathic. We could be feeling so much right now and wondering how to make sense of all of it, wondering how to move through it with grace. And we can feel just sort of lost in all of that hoocha, that heavy energy. And from that place, we can actually get physically sick and not feel well and have depression or anxiety or actual chronic fatigue even. And this is what we're going to talk about today is how do we keep ourselves connected to the truth of things? How do we understand who we are and how we're built, how we're designed so that we can actually keep ourselves very healthy and very connected and very grounded and full of love, while all of this dismantling is happening in the world around us, while things are churned up sort of in the, the deep bottoms of the human subconscious, all this stuff is getting churned up and it's super muddy and we need to move through it to create clarity. And so today's conversation is going to talk about how do you know if you're congested energetically? How do you know if you need to do some work to bring back the color, bring back the sacred geometry of your chakras, bring back your sacred essence into fullness inside this human vessel? And how can you navigate that? So I'm really excited today to have our guest, Katie Dean, with us. I met Katie as part of the video project that we just did, the Clickety Clack, Navigating the Clickety Clack. And it was a beautiful series. It's out there if you guys want to see it. There's somewhat famous people from The Secret involved in that series, so you could go check it out. But I'm really excited to have met you, Katie, and I'm glad you're here on the show with us. And I'm just going to tell people a little bit about you so that they know who you are. Besides being on this, award-winning program that I'm also on, Katie Dean is a writer. She's an award-winning artist and energy coach, and she specializes in supporting people to reconnect to their true self, empowering them to live with self-love, peace, and joy. She holds a bachelor's, master's, and PhD in history, all from Cambridge University. And she worked as a business strategy consultant in London before becoming ill and being diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. So obviously that illness was hard to keep doing that job. And so she started walking the path of spirit. And now here she is today. She is training as a bioenergetic health coach, a color therapist, and NLP. Life coaching, trauma therapy, and she's created the Kolorlan System, a blueprint for wholeness and metamorphosis. And that's what we're going to talk about today is that journey of like, oh my gosh, how I'm living does not support me. So welcome, Katie. And you're broadcasting to us from London, yes?
That is right. Thank you so much, Carrie, for having me, for that beautiful introduction and the setup. I mean, it absolutely could not be more true how tricky it is to be navigating the world, the planet at the moment, especially if you're empathic, as you say, and even more so if you don't know that you're empathic, which is kind of what triggered my whole journey, really. So yes, I'm just to the northwest of London, but I grew up around here. Aside from going to university in Cambridge, I've kind of lived here my life, apart from a year in the States as well, just thinking about that. And yeah, I was working in London when I got sick. Really, it's kind of classic story of I was just following the normal social trajectory through university into the business career. I assumed I would move on up the career ladder, get married, have a family, do all the normal stuff. And I was 2 years into my career and I had been getting more and more tired physically, but I was working long hours, not really supporting my body that well. So it seemed natural. And then it was one November morning back in 2002, and I basically just collapsed on my way into work. I was on the train trying to get in and suddenly just taken really ill. I had, station staff looking after me, sort of got better enough to just get the last bit into the office to kind of recover and then turn around and went straight back home again. And I found myself bedbound then for weeks, housebound for months. Took 6 months to get a diagnosis. First, the doctors were signing me off with exhaustion and they were just testing everything, all the sort of traditional normal blood tests. And eventually after 6 months, when they couldn't find anything specific wrong, but I also wasn't recovering, they just said, all right, well, you've got chronic fatigue syndrome. We don't really understand the illness. You probably won't get better. And we don't know how to help. Bye.
Wow, what a like thud in your life, like a just giant thud. You must have thought, this is the rest of my life?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I survived that by just going straight into denial. I couldn't really accept the way my body was. I've got these memories of phoning up every Monday morning, calling into the office going, well, I'm still not very well, so I won't be in next week, but next week I'll be fine. It was just so unrealistic, the state that my body was in. But what I didn't realize at the time, but I now see, was that was my body's massive screaming at me. I'd been on this life path trajectory that was just not in resonance with who I truly am, with my soul, if you like. And our bodies are the messengers. I mean, we're not taught this about them. And conventional view of ill health doesn't sort of bring this idea in that when things, quote unquote, go wrong with the body, it's not actually gone wrong. It's just the body giving us a nudge to look at where we are in our life. And yeah, for me, that was the nudge that, no, this career path into the business world it's not your path. So that began a really long journey that took me the longest time to understand all of that. At first, I was still viewing this from the paradigm of having a physical body and nothing more. So it was like, okay, well, which systems have failed? Is there a pill I can take for this? Have I got the wrong diagnosis? All those kinds of questions going through. And I was fortunate because I just stumbled upon a nutritionist and starting to investigate how I was like literally feeding my body. It gave me some clues. I found some feed groups that were really not supportive. So when I cut them out, my energy lifted. And that was kind of the first aha moment that was more towards functional medicine. So it took me a long time to fully explore that avenue. I started bringing in yoga, which again was that first tiny little glimpse of sort of connecting into the energetic body, not just the physical. But really, it took 14 years before I fully went down the healing path. So I was sort of in this paradigm of denial, just trying to make do. I managed to regain enough energy to sort of function to some degree. And I was sort of like, okay, well, this is it. This is going to be my life, just managing symptoms. I'd given up my job in the city and I started doing something creative. So that was like my first clue of this is who Katie really is.
Katie is creative. Yeah.
I'd always known that. I mean, I'd always been into craft as a small child, but in my mindset and the social setup around me, it's like you don't make a living out of doing creative stuff. That's a nice hobby on the side. And it was kind of pushed into my path. So it was actually working with beads was my creative outlets. And I remember, traveling in the States, funnily enough, I was always fascinated by the Native American beadwork. And I learned, peyote stitch is one of the key stitches that I use. That's used so much by the native community. And, and I learned things like if it's used for sort of more decorative stuff, it's called gourd stitch. It's peyote stitch when it's more spiritual things. So I was learning these little things that didn't have any sort of significance for me at the time. It's only as I look back later, I just see how guided my really was. So it was 2012 when I, gave up the business job, started the beading, and was like, I don't know if I can make a living from this, but I did. But then I repeated the cycle. I mean, this time I was doing something that I really loved, but that was still driving me to push my body in directions it didn't want to go, not really listening, not really tuning into myself. And then 2016, I had another complete crash, completely bedbound again. And that time that was like, right, no, this is it. I have to find the solution for this now. So I again went back onto the physical, but then shifted to exploring first the mind-body connection. So that was still kind of within the conventional psychology, that sort of realm. And then it was just by chance, although obviously not chance, that the nutritionist I was working with decided to retire, and I got assigned a new nutritionist within the clinic I was working with. And it just so happened that she was very spiritual, and we kind of got talking, and she was like, I actually know someone who does sort of energy healing. Would you be interested in giving it a try? And I was like, yes, please. So I had this experience of actually having someone working on my energy field remotely and feeling things shift. I was feeling like my physical body shifting, and experienced another level of increased wellness from that. So it's like, okay, this is really something. And then coincidentally, I found myself going into, just getting more and more into spiritual circles. So it was all these little paths came together that gradually saw my body rebuilding itself to a place where it was 2022, really, I would say, like I've overcome chronic fatigue syndrome. And I'd done this deep dive exploration into all the different layers, all the different causes for me, and this understanding of why things had worked at certain times and why different things hadn't worked, and learning lots about timing and just appreciating that we all have our own journey. So off the back of that, I ended up writing my book, Finding the Energy to Thrive, which is coming out at the end of May. And that's really helping to guide others through their own maze, because I believe we will have this individual path through. And the really big thing about that book is not about giving you a sort of however many step recovery process. It's about giving you an overview of the landscape and helping you reconnect to your inner truth, to understand where your path lies in the way that I kind of discovered mine. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, that's a big journey. And don't you feel like if you look back on it now, can you see that those dots connecting, like those are like classrooms or bodies of wisdom that you had to collect in order to be standing at this moment to share a message out to others who are about to face or are facing the beginning steps of what you went through?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. There were times, especially around 2016, when I had the second crash and started sort of really, really going deep into the research, that I was actually kind of kicking myself for, well, why did it take me this long to do this? But I came out of that. And now as I reflect back, it was everything was absolutely perfect, divine timing. I needed to have all those various different experiences to, exactly as you've just expressed, to bring in that wisdom to share. And yeah, I freely confess it's actually quite scary sitting here on the precipice of putting my book out to the world and sharing that. And at the same time, I know that's my journey. That's what I have to do. And I'm sort of trying to lean into that trust that the people who need my book will find it. They will receive the messages that are helpful and supportive to them. And although, my journey's been chronic fatigue syndrome, as I was writing the book and as I'm aware now, so much of the wisdom I gained is so much bigger than just, that one illness label. It really is about, well, as you alluded at the beginning, learning who we are and how we navigate everything that's going on around us. And there is so much happening at the moment that we really need those tools to find our center and sit in that space of peace and love while everything is unfolding. So, we're there to support from that space.
Yeah. And what I love about your journey and what you shared is that this is a depth journey. Like, this is an embodied lifetime journey of unpacking this in your own life because of your physical condition, seeking answers, finding those answers, embodying those answers, navigating the path, looking at the landscape, figuring out what it is. That is a rich, deep path of wisdom, which is really different than going to take a spiritual class and then immediately turning around 1 week later and putting out your business. And this is why there's so much flack in the spiritual community around spiritual entrepreneurs, right? Is because that's been the model for a little bit here. Like, I can just go get my Reiki certification and become a master and then immediately start telling everybody how to do it. But that's not true, actually. Those are activations. They just sort of kick off a journey that you have to actually deeply embody and go through the lessons of to get through that dark night of the soul, or however many are needed to learn everything you need to learn. You got to walk the path. And then once you've walked it and embodied all the wisdom through your lived experience, then you can turn around, which is why it's an elder conversation, which is why it's, the elders in the society are the ones who bring forth the wisdom because they've actually walked the path, and granted, we have some younger elders going on right now, physically speaking, probably not soul wise, but physically speaking, looking, appearances wise, women in their 50s and 60s, right, that are stepping forward as the elders because this world needs elders. We've had, so many baby souls running the show that it's like superficial. You have to have that depth of soul, not only of soul, but also in this particular lived experience. That's why we have to go through it all again, I feel, is that we've had all these lifetimes, but now in this incarnation, we have to kind of remind ourselves and walk down this breadcrumb trail to collect all the pieces that we got in other lifetimes so that we can put the whole puzzle together and then deliver it as a messenger, which is what we're doing now. But a lot of people get frustrated, like in the middle of that, because until you get to the mountaintop and you see that, it's like, why is all this happening to me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't have put it better. Everything that you've just expressed and is such a reflection of how I feel. And I'm still on my journey and I'm still going through. There'll be more dark nights of the soul. And in my, what I would label a spiritual awakening, I guess that came was around 2021. I started actually remembering a couple of past lives. I know I've had many. And I also know that the specifics that I've remembered are there with a purpose. I can see how they've reflected in this life and how I've brought that unhealed stuff into this life, and with the nudges from my current experience to sort of push me in the direction of processing that. And it's as you just expressed, until you appreciate that that's what's happening, you can sit in victimhood, really. You can just go like, why is the world so terrible? Why is everyone so mean to me? Why is my life going wrong? And none of it's wrong. It's all with the perfect path. But even seeing that intellectually, the step of then actually bringing that through and embodying it is another journey in itself. And I feel like I'm still learning that journey. It's like I can understand where it's going now, but there's still days where I'm sitting in all my stuff and the fear and the distrust and the where is this going and how did I get here? And it's like that's a part of me. And then there's another wiser part that's remembering and going, no, it's all okay. It's all good. And I feel very much at the moment I'm still holding both of those parts together. Sometimes I have more awareness of one than the other, but most of the time I can feel the two. And yeah, I can only imagine where it's going next.
Yeah, we're like straddling the two worlds right now, the world that's dissolving and destroying itself and the world that's emerging, the seeds that have been planted that are growing in that fertile soil that are starting to poke their little heads up to the sun. And so we can be vacillating between these two views of the world. And I myself definitely find myself looking at the world going, oh no, this is so much pain. Why are you going through that? We don't have to do that, right? And also like maybe my soul doesn't have to do that because I've already been through some devastating lifetimes. I've already kind of checked the box off on that, right? But other souls are in that process. And as you were talking, I was also receiving this message, like what's interesting is that as the collective itself has gone through these weekend workshops and gotten these initiations and gotten processes kicked off, right? And they got so much value from that to start because they were at the understanding of all I am is a body. And so, yeah, so it's a huge value to go from that to, oh, I'm a spirit in a body. That's humongous. But then there's like pushing the edge of that and wanting, because what happens is that those of us who are quick in that process go, there's more. I know there's more, and start pushing the edges and the bounds of what then is seen as superficial, right? It doesn't have the depth that we need. We need more depth. We need more. We know there's more. And so then we start pushing the edge of that. And then we find those next level teachers that have that depth, that have that lived experience, right? That help us to go to the next place and then the next place and the next place. So yeah, I feel like we are all helping each other walk home, and it's sort of shaking out right now. Things in the world. It's like, oh, there's something really different about this group of souls that are running things, right? Versus these group of souls that are in deep spiritual wisdom. They operate differently. And you can start to see, if you have the lens of the soul, you can go, oh, well, those are some baby souls learning some really hard lessons that they need to learn right now, that they're going to for lifetimes go, why did I do that? Because they have to understand it. And if we're just from the human perspective, though, we look at it and we go, oh, no, it can make us feel like, make this stop. So I have both of those inside of me, and it can get congested, right? And isn't that part of like, it's like the conflict within creates that congestion energy that then is actually what creates some of that chronic disease, right? If we don't parse it, sort it, and come to some resolution within ourselves. Is that true for you? Is that your understanding?
Yes, because I see, we are a field of energy and there's flow. I mean, it's actually a toroidal flow. It's kind of going like this if you were to watch it. But as you're hitting up against those things that are, well, unprocessed, I mean, I have this visual of them being like boulders in the middle of a river. And, it kind of stops the water and it diverts the water. And that's what's happening within your flow. And if you think about, it takes a lot more energy to try and flow around obstacles than it is to just follow this straight, easy path. So for me, the process of healing was very much about identifying those obstacles and just allowing them to release. And in a way, for that, you have to get out of your own way. Because I think on this human level, we're again very in this masculine energy of it being, it's all about doing something. So it's like, oh, I see an obstacle. What do I do with it?
Let me get my axe.
I'll hammer it some. Or, oh no, that doesn't work. Well, let's just try and shovel it out the way. Oh, no, that doesn't work. That's using up more energy as well. And it's actually about just being with it. Just not trying to judge it, not trying to shift it, just observing it. And it's naturally going to dissipate. And as it's doing so, you're embodying the wisdom that it holds. Because when we're naturally in flow, challenges are flowing in, we're processing them, taking the wisdom from them, and they dissipate. When they're getting stuck, it's because there's something that's prevented us from taking that wisdom. And it's not, our fault. For me, there's been a lot that's cleared from childhood. And that's as true for a lot of people. I mean, you can view that from the spiritual lens, but you can also view it from a more psychology lens of just, we're born on this planet forgetting who we are. We have this belief that our parent or, caregiver, whoever it might be, is our survival. And it is when we're a baby. So, we're inevitably going to pick up some stuff, and we're supposed to. That's what our souls designed. Because, that's the lessons they wanted to learn when they came in. It's funny because I was talking about this with someone a little while ago who was saying, well, I don't get it. Why would a soul choose to learn something, really uncomfortable? And I was like, well, it's like doing my PhD in history. For me, that was just information. I was just, it wasn't like, oh, well, I only want to learn about the happy bits of history. It's like, no, I want to learn what happened in history. So some of it's happy, joyful stories, and some of it is carnage and war and horrific stuff.
And tragic. Yeah.
But I still learn it all because that's what I want to learn. And that at the soul level is what's happening. But at the human level, of course, we're experiencing the pain, which is also part of the journey because that's about us discerning how we want to evolve. I mean, if you have an experience, you're like, oh God, this is really not comfortable. Whether you change it in this lifetime or a future lifetime, that is giving you this guide as to, well, where do I put my boundaries? Where's the comfort for me? Where's the comfort for other people? And that's the process of evolution. So really in that respect, there's nothing that's quote unquote wrong. It's just a process of learning. And, I see each of us as individuations of source, and source is on this grand experiment it's infinite. Everything is just an experience to know more, to understand more deeply, to embody more fully.
Yeah. And that perspective is along the lines of allowing the river to flow, right? Just allowing life to move through you, as you, by you, for you. And there's been aspects of human and maybe ancestral lineages or just pockets of resistance to that have created those boulders, right? And part of the energetics that I've seen is like, there's a couple of really deep patterns that create a lot of horrific outcomes that are like infinity loops. Like there's no escape out of it once you're in that eddy. And that's what creates, it's like this like human desire to like, don't wake it up, because if it wakes up, it's going to cause all this carnage, right? And so everyone's tiptoeing around trying not to wake it up. But then every 50 years, it wakes up again. And it's like, we're back in the same thing. So there's just this way that we can understand also, though, at a consciousness level, that we are also, as much as we are experiencing this human creation, we also collectively, ancestrally, and galactically have the ability to come to consensus about what kind of experience that's going to be. And we just made a major shift in the human collective that I'm not sure everybody's aware of, but those who are really energetically tapped in felt the veil lift about like a week ago. And it's like, oh, we're no longer doing that piece. Okay. We might be seeing it out pictured, but it's only because it's like those last bits of it that are just down the river. And so that's going to change things up, because without those sort of locked patterns, those locked infinity circles, like keeping you stuck in these repeating patterns, it's actually now it's opened. So things can move, and so the next level of emotion around just above those things is like rage and anger. Those things are now coming up because this other energetic has been released. So I don't know if have you perceived that as well? Like this unlocking of like these pieces in the human collective?
Yes, I have. I felt huge amounts shift. I mean, this year has just been like one shift after another, and it's running through my body as well. Is another thing that I just simply didn't know about myself, that I'm empathic. It's because outside of sort of the spiritual circle, which I'm happy to say is widening so much. When I think back 20 years ago to conversations I would have with friends, to conversations I would have with those same friends now, I can see this awareness is already widening. But, outside of that, there's no talk of empathy and highly sensitive people and this idea that we can share consciousness and all of those things. And without understanding that, it's, you're carrying a lot in your body that just doesn't make sense. And then it's really easy to go into self-blame of, oh, I must be a weak person. What's wrong with me? Or these stories that we tell ourselves. And yeah, circling back to what you were saying about the infinity loops and the lifting and how, the different emotions that dissipate out. I love to perceive things kind of on this fractal idea. So when an idea is a bit difficult to perceive or out of reach at one level, so maybe it's at the universal consciousness level, I bring it into, well, how's that reflected within, my little bit of society, or even smaller within my body. And that I can see very much within the body. It's like rewiring the neural pathways. So it's like you learned, your nervous system as a baby learned a habit, say, I am not going to be helped. So, for whatever reason, you might cry out with a need and that need wasn't met. at the time when your nervous system has embodied this pattern of I cannot be helped. And that's like your personal infinity loop that you're going to go through life. Anytime you hit anything that's challenging to you, you're going to respond with, okay, well, I'm on my own here. And, that's pros and cons. That can lead you to be really resilient, but it also can lead you to be shut down and suffer a lot. And it's when you sort of firstly become aware of that, then secondly go, well, actually, is that something that I enjoy that brings me comfort and peace? If it's not, then am I willing to let that go? That's kind of like the beginning of that rewiring. And that's sort of what we've done. That's what I feel has happened on the collective. There's been, there's universal awareness of, oh, hang on, we've got this little infinity loop here. How's that playing out? Is that something we want to hold on to now? Well, actually, no. Okay, so let's let that go. But then it's a process as we rewire and go, well, how does the world look now? We're not locked into that. And it's gradual to learn. So, coming back to that personal of I cannot be helped, as you begin to let that go, and it's really difficult then the first time you are brave enough to say to somebody else, look, I've got this problem. I think you might have a solution. Can you help me? That, your nervous system is kind of exploding as you're trying to do that. But if you can just take that step, then it becomes easier and easier and easier. And that's kind of the path that humanity is embarking upon now. There will be things that happen that would normally have been in that infinity loop that will want to trigger us into the old patterned response. But if we can just take a breath and go, okay, how would I prefer to respond? Try that new response, and gradually over time that will rewire to become the default, and the changes will flow. But it's not in a second overnight process.
Yeah. And the reason it's available for people to tap into the new pathways is because of everybody that's been doing the light work and the shadow work for the last couple decades,
Yeah.
That's why it's available to them, is that the first wave came through and stood in the way of many atrocious things. And then the second wave is now here on the planet. And because of all the work that everybody listening here has been doing, those pathways are now available for people that are just waking up to tap into that. And I love that you brought up asking for help. Asking for help is really important because we are not actually able to evolve without each other. We have to have that mirror reflection in order to see things that is hard to see in ourselves. Just like imagine trying to see your back without a mirror. You can't. Your head doesn't swivel like an owl. You cannot see your back, so we need each other in order to see more clearly our own patterns. And so, communities where you can be a witness and you're like-minded, but also you're seeing each other's shadows. And it's like, oh, that's mine too. I love that you said, what am I seeing on the collective that's outside that's also happening inside me? Where can I track that energy within myself, disrupt any little infinity loops that are going on about it, and release that energy? Because the patterns are now available. All the work that we've been doing has been upgrading the human genome. And so is already available. The new human is available. So everyone just needs to say, yes, I want that code, and then receive that code, and then start to unpack everything that is no longer needed from the old genome, right? Releasing kind of like waste, which becomes mulch, which grows new seeds, new fertility. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an amazing path that it goes on, and no mistakes in all of that. And what was coming, there's something lovely coming in for me just now. It'll come back. But it's having that awareness that what we're seeing in others is the reflection in ourselves, and that it works both ways. Because I know I used to run a pattern or an assumption that when you're talking about releasing the darkness, you're talking about, like the unpleasant things like the anger or the jealousy or, the things that we term as negative. But actually your shadow can also be, more positive things. If you've learned to play small, then you can have a shadow that's around your empowerment, not negative power, but that power to sort of stand forth and shine. You can have shadows around joy. And if you've had experiences where you were experiencing joy and then something challenging came in, your nervous system can learn a program of always dangerous to experience joy. And it's incredible to think that we can actually be suppressing all these beautiful things inside us as well. But all of it is reflected in the people that we see around us. And it's this dual reflection. It's the people that really trigger us. So, I mean, you just take a glance around your life at the moment. I mean, even today, who really triggered you? What were they doing? Why were they doing it? Well, they're inside of you. They're the little parts of you that are going, hello, I'm shut off. Or it's time to reintegrate me. But also all the people and the things that brought you joy, they're also inside of you. So again, it's celebrating those, and it's understanding all of that landscape that's inside you and accessible, and none of it's wrong. It's just about allowing it to live in harmony, not sort of shutting any part of it away in a cupboard and locking the door and going, no, I don't want to see you. It's really about being seen. And that's kind of the energy that's coming into the collective. I mean, it's getting distorted by some that would like to hold on to older ways of division. But when we can move past that, we are coming to this space where we can see this incredible diversity amongst humanity and accept and embrace all of that, not make any of it better or worse than the other. And that's the process you're aiming for within, but you don't have to go out. As soon as you start doing it within, you're creating the energy that flows out that just allows it to happen outwardly. So in a way, it's just so simple. If everyone on the planet does their inner work, you don't have to worry about what X, Y, and Z around you are doing. The energy patterns will just reshape and form. And that is actually literally how we get world peace. Find the peace within you, and that's going to ripple out.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, I was getting, oh, yeah. And so in the collective, there are a bunch of aspects of consciousness that are being really big boulders.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so no wokeness whatsoever. I do not want to be empathic. I do not want to feel empathy. I do not want to wake up. I want division. I want suffering, blah, 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 blah. And so, yeah, it creates this congestion of energy, like this density. And then when everything else is flowing around it, it's flowing around it really fast because those of us that are in the flow are evolving rapidly. And so the water, is moving really, really, really fast. And the ones that are holding down and being, are just getting more and more and more dense and congested in that decision. And so it can feel kind of scary. It can feel scary. And that's why they contract and retract and go into holding and clutching and not moving forward, right? Not opening, not listening, is because nothing looks familiar and everything is moving so fast. But for those of us that are in the flow, it's delightful. It's like, yay, we're finally free of all that congested, dense stuff. And we're like liberated from it, and we can create anything we want to create. So I feel like it is true. I mean, the sage advice from the indigenous, since you brought the indigenous up, and we're almost out of time here, but I just got to throw this in.
Yeah.
Is that, we're here to walk the middle way. So what's always interesting to me about that is that we're walking the middle way, yes, between the shadows and, whatever we perceive as heavy and dense and difficult, and the light, everything that makes us feel happy and delightful, right? And we're going to walk the middle way between both and holding all of it. And we are also simultaneously in humanity experiencing an up level of an octave in our consciousness. Yeah. So both and, like, yes, we are lifting an octave and we are still holding all of it. So it's a lot to manage right now. And so I just hope everyone just give yourself some grace because, it is lifting and there are some boulders that want to fall down, and maybe they'll go to the first or second dimension. I don't know. But hopefully everybody will decide to open and receive. There's got to be a tipping point where it just starts this domino effect and all the shackles come off and people just decide to drop the heavy load and let it go and open up and get some love, because that's what everybody wants anyway. When you put some medicine on a cut, it stings.
Yeah.
And sometimes love can sting too when you're wounded. Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's something that you have not experienced, it's very difficult to trust. if all you have experienced, and I mean, it can be energies that were calling themselves love, but did not feel loving to you. So then being offered love or joy, it's hard to really trust that. So, yeah.
Now, I know we didn't even get into the work that you're doing with colors and with sacred geometries. And for that, everybody, I apologize. But we got off on such a great conversation. We just have to let that be. And then if you want to know about that, you're just going to have to go learn from Katie. So, sneak. So, let's see. You've got lots of places for people to reach out to you: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. All of those links will be down in the show notes below. I know your book is coming out. Can you tell us the title of your book again?
Yes, it's Finding the Energy to Thrive, Navigating the Maze of Life, and Embracing Your Path to Wholeness.
I love that.
Thank you.
Beautiful. And is there a pre-order available?
It's out on the 29th of May, and there is an online launch. So if you go to my website, katiedean.co.uk, there's a page on there that will take you through to come and join us for the online launch. And yeah, I'd love to connect with people there. You can connect with me that way as well. And yeah, as I said, I am still evolving both as a person and as the offerings I'm bringing to support humanity. So if it feels aligned and you want to jump on and evolve with me, then yeah, come. You can connect with me on my website, and I'm just excited to meet everyone and see how this path unfolds. So thank you. Thank you, Carrie, for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and thank you for this beautiful conversation. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks for staying till the end. And of course, I know you stayed because you want your kisses, but before you get those, don't forget to share this episode out and like and subscribe and comment and build some energy around this medicine so that it reaches more people in the world. We really appreciate you doing that. And here come your kisses. You can join me if you want. Here come kisses, everybody. We love you. We love you. We love you. We'll see you later. Mwah. Yay! We'll see you next time on Soul Nectar's show. Bye for now, everyone. If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar's show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, Nectar Show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.